Spiritual story time. I have a lot of people that ask me, how did I get started reading tarot and doing intuitive readings? So super interesting, actually. Many moons ago, when I was living in Mexico, almost 3 or 4 years ago, I was starting to practice tarot just for myself. I thought it was super interesting and honestly a fun tool, especially as I was navigating my spiritual growth journey. And as I was navigating a lot of tower moments, if you know what I mean, but a lot of like upheaval, massive changes, changing in terms of profession, job, career, starting my business, relationships, moving out of the country. It was a lot, and I just found it a really fun spiritual tool and was just ultimately practicing it for myself. I had zero intention of ever doing it for other people. I just was doing it for myself until when I was living in Mexico. I often would take my tiny tarot deck to the beach with me, and I would just practice on reading myself, asking for guidance or clarity in that day, and ultimately using the cards to help me navigate what I was experiencing on my spiritual growth journey. As my intuitive gifts were being heightened, I was really overwhelmed energetically and could start to feel into people's energy and emotions and feelings and thoughts just by looking at them. So it was pretty overwhelming at the time. So I was using tarot as a tool to help me, support me with messages, whatever I needed to hear, see, or feel that given day. So as I was practicing learning tarot for myself, I was starting to have complete strangers come up to me literally on the streets or the sidewalk and ask me like, hey, can you do a reading for me? And a lot of these people were asking me in Spanish if I could do a reading for them. And at the time my Spanish was not very good. And I was like, no, no, I don't, I'm just learning. Like, it's only for me. I don't do readings. And I literally would have people be like, no, you're going to give me a reading and I'm going to pay you for it. And I just was like, okay, like I'll just see what comes out and I'll do my best to explain what's coming through. And it was wild to literally, like, I'd be sitting alone in a restaurant and I would have complete strangers, like one after the next, be like, okay, like I would like a reading now. And I was like, no, like this is not something, no, like we're not. And it was literally wild and such a good example of like, I would have never done this in a million years unless the universe literally forced me by having absolute strangers come up to me in public places being like, you're going to give me a reading. And then they'd be like, here's money. And I was like, oh, no, I'm good. And they're like, no, you're going to receive money for this. And this is what you're supposed to be doing. And I just was like, what? That being said, that is how I first got started reading tarot. What's interesting, at the time I was already starting my own business, which I thought was just going to be a health and wellness business. I was going to focus mostly on yoga and meditation, but I knew that like that wasn't enough. Like I innately was like, that's not really what I meant to do. Like I can do that for some people, but that's not like my whole purpose or calling. And then when I started doing this by force from the universe, I was like, I don't know where this fits in my business model or plan, but like I'll just add it on the side. And now 90% of my business is reading. I've also changed how I do readings over time, and I actually no longer need the cards as I've strengthened my spiritual gifts, which is pretty wild. All I need is someone's name, first and last name, and their location, and I can start to connect into whatever messages they need to receive. It's pretty wild, some of the things that I see, especially from people I've never met before.